Welcome back, guys. My next guest, he started his career in the mailroom of McCann Erickson in San Francisco after majoring in history at UC Berkeley. He took a 3-month work gap to travel across parts of South America with his partner, now wife. And he has a passion for action movies and started a tracker, which we're going to go straight into. Head of industry dining at Viant, Todd Johnson. Good to see you, my friend. How are you, Todd?
Great to see you, Ian. I'm doing well. I'm excited that you're excited about the action movies.
I'm very excited. I know we're going to deviate off here, but this typically happens with people's fun facts. But give me, so I know you've rewatched, what was it, 235 movies that you've already scored across 8 categories. As
Yeah.
my wife would say, like, sounds like you got a lot of time on your hand. And I know you've done that while you traveled, but give me the algorithm that you've produced. And sidebar, we should probably sell this on the podcast and get you some side revenue.
Well, it's like any good passion, it's a product of time and energy. I started, gosh, back in my Yumi days. It was the early days of connected TV, and I had a role there where was a bit of a futurist role, and I would go around the country working with the sales team, talking about trends in linear TV and CTV. So I was going all over the country. We were going to Kansas City, we were in Chicago, New York, Miami, LA, all over the place. And so I was on a plane a bunch. And I really enjoy action movies, always have from my youth, like I'm of that generation. And came up with this idea of like, if, in my opinion, Die Hard is a perfect action movie, like representation of that genre, could I start to evaluate other movies based on the qualities that make Die Hard a great movie, where it's the protagonist, the villain, the sidekick, the action itself, the story, the je ne sais quoi elements of certain action movies. And so as I traveled, and then when I was at home on weekends and had some downtime, I'd throw on a movie and start to think about it relative to Die Hard.
Well, since you said Die Hard is the benchmark, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Yes or no?
I don't think we have to box ourselves into any one thing. I think it definitely is a Christmas movie. I showed it to my son at Christmas time. Unfortunately, a couple of years ago, he was sick, and so we couldn't go see family on Christmas Eve. And I said, you know what? It's time to see Die Hard. So
Yeah.
I think it plays there, but I don't think you only have to watch it in Christmas time.
Wait, and so how old is your son?
He's 14 now.
Okay, so our kids are right at the same age. Yeah, I'm at the point now. We were having this discussion, which is so funny that you have an algorithm built out. But we're having this discussion, like, what age is it appropriate for your boys to start watching iconic boy action movies that just shaped? Because you and I are around the same age, so we
Mhm.
definitely grew up. What's just out of curiosity, and we'll move on to the real portion of the podcast. But what's number 2 and 3?
Well, I just want to clarify, Ian, that algorithm is pretty generous for what I'm doing.
Try to church it up here for you.
Yeah, yeah. It's a Google sheet that just calculates stuff. Number 2 is Point Break, and that the original Point Break was Swayze. I think that was a seminal a movie of my youth, where like early Keanu, it just goes set piece to set piece. Swayze's just completely on fire in that movie. Busey's on fire. It's serious, but it's not too serious. It's surfing. That's right at the top. And then, if you're not familiar with John Woo's breakout Hard Boiled, like that's number 3 on the
You're
list. It's
like
kind of
my action movies are complete opposite of your Google sheet. So my
well, what would you
mine
have in your top?
it's like Gladiator, 300, and those would be my top 2 right off the
Mm.
top of my head. So a different type of action movie, but I feel you on these. So
I mean, when you're in that rarefied air, like it just a part of it comes down to taste. Like not everyone would necessarily agree that Die Hard is the number one action movie, but I think it sets a template from which you can start to compare other action movies to it.
I get it. It's got a the romance to it, the villain that also may not be a villain to some people. So I feel you on
Right.
that. That's
Right.
amazing. So let's jump deep into your career. So you've kind of we talked about this on the prep call, a bit of a generalist, but also a specialist, obviously within your title at Viant, heading up specifically industry dining. I love that because most guests on our podcast, their jobs are so all over the place. Not saying yours isn't, but talk to me a little bit. Let's go deep into that. Generalist versus specialist. What are the benefits of being a generalist early in your career compared to where you are today?
Well, Ian, I was thinking about this a little bit after our initial call as well, and thinking about kind of putting some thoughts around how I think about this. And I'd say up front, like, there's no wrong path to go. I think if you're a generalist or you're a specialist, like, you kind of have to make your decisions and adjust to what works for your personality. For me, I'm a naturally curious person, um, but I'm somebody who likes to go a mile wide. I don't necessarily want to go a mile deep. So across my career, I started out, as you mentioned, in the mailroom at McCann Erickson in San Francisco. I wanted to get in advertising. I thought it was really fascinating. They offered me an opportunity to start in the mailroom, and I had met with someone on an informational interview who said, "Hey, you know what? They have a really good reputation for promoting from within. You should focus on them." And when I got that job, I said, "Hey, look, let me meet all the different people who work in a full service agency," because at that point the agency had creative, it had traffic, it had account management, and it had media all together in one. And the mailroom allowed me to meet different people and understand what their jobs were, which allowed me to find my interest in the media aspect of it. And then across my career, as I moved into it, it was strategic planning. So early days, we worked with local TV. This is in San Francisco. Worked in local TV, local radio. Did a lot. We had talked about this. I did a lot of out of home early days. Like, we
Mhm.
were one of the brands I worked on was like the number two out of home spender in California at the time, the California Milk Advisory Board. So I got to see a bunch of different things, which kept me interested. And so I recognized relatively early on in my career that uh, it's important to understand something and bring value and thoughtfulness, especially when you're working in a client service relationship. But but for me, like, I found passion in kind of shifting that every few years to feel like I was a little off center and that I had to kind of wrap my head around something new.
Yeah, and what a great way to look at it, because especially today, like, we had a guest on the podcast, good friend Chuck Sanchez. He owns a digital agency that now has morphed into creative and all these other channels. And him and I talk about it a good bit, but I'd love to spend more time here because in a world today where when you and I first started our careers, it was very simple. Like, you were buying like regular TV. There was no such thing as streaming. There was newspaper, radio. You were a hero if you bought TV, and there wasn't, hundreds of thousands of channels to buy from. So it was very, I don't want to say simplistic, but today, the way brands utilize each medium, we just got a massive campaign from an app company that talks about how to teach people languages, right? And we were having the conversation with them, and they were talking about how each channel that they use their same exact brand campaign with, it's significantly different. So I love the concept of even more today being a generalist, because if you know how all media works together, the knowledge that you bring to the tech company, the platform, the agency, the brand itself just becomes so much better. And I know from my end, working 21 years at Lamar, most people are kind of like, oh, well, all this guy knows about is out of home. But same as you, I feel like every week there's a new platform, a new system, a new way, especially now with like whole AI channel that's happening. It just, it's better for your career to know all things, and you kind of get to become that consultative seller. And I know from my angle as a vendor publisher, it allows me to better understand you, Todd, your client's needs, and like, how does out of home in this example weave into a social, a CTV, a mobile campaign more seamlessly, because now we're not so fragmented. So I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think, and you probably went through this big transition with programmatic, where it was like what our skill sets were out of college and early in our career. Suddenly, we were being asked to understand and do things differently, and the marketplace would change. I think back to early years at Yumi here in Chicago, and we would call on Acuin, which was Omnicom's early programmatic buying arm. And I remember going into a meeting with a friendly there, someone who we had could have honest conversations, and those are the best partnerships. And I walked out of it with my boss, and we would say, do we feel better or worse or the same about our space in the marketplace, knowing that programmatic is coming? And for me, that was a signal that, like, I have to continue to be curious and challenge myself to learn different things and feel a little bit off center. So I think the market's always going to change. I mean, we're going through a change right now with AI. I think the important thing to keep in mind is as technical skills evolve or change into more automation, the soft skills continue to be important and become more increasingly important. So like when I think about my kids and I'd be interested in how you message this to your children, I'll talk about, hey, it's really important to know how to communicate. It's really important to be able to hold the attention of a room, even for a short amount of time, and have confidence being standing up in front of people. Can you communicate articulately, both in language, in spoken language, and in written language? Like these are the skills that will enable you to be relevant as you go forward into your life and career.
What a wild thing, right? Because I'm sure your dad taught you the same thing. It was like, hey, shake a hand, eye contact, put your head
Yeah.
down and work hard, right? But I 100% couldn't agree with you more. And that's, for my triplets, that's exactly what we talk about is we talk about, yeah, sidebar, 14-year-old. So there's not just a little boy, there's two girls. And then we have a little 12-year-old, and all of our listeners know all about them. But yeah,
Yeah.
we teach that all the time. It's like, if you can story tell, the technology's there, and no matter what you do, whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, in the ad space, in the AI space, whatever, if you're a rocket scientist, the knowledge is there. The knowledge part has become easy. Where you and I, this is hilarious because I'm going to just say I'm the old guy on the call, not you. But you and I, with doing research, we had to go to the library literally and research and pull like old articles. I remember in college having to do that and case studies. I mean, the amount of data and the ability to be a generalist while also being a specialist simultaneously, like put AI aside, like it is there for the younger generations to become more knowledgeable, and the communication side of things. I couldn't agree with you more on that.
Yeah, and I think as I've gotten older, it's welcoming discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we you had mentioned, and I had told you early on, and my fun facts is traveling for 3 months in South America. Between the time my partner and now wife and I moved from New York to Chicago, part of the joy I've found in traveling, both when it was just myself or it was the two of us, or now with our children, is this idea of feeling a little bit uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean I don't like a good beach vacation or a ski trip, but going to a different city or a different country and feeling just a little bit off. Like I think about my career that way is like I like the idea of, when I moved to Viant at the start of this year, it was a chance to get back to CTV, which I loved, but to really kind of immerse myself back into what was happening with programmatic, which I'd spent the last 5 years away from. And so it was like, well, that's not going to be comfortable for me, but that discomfort is going to be interesting. It's going to make each day fun and challenging, and it's going to like allow me to bring a different perspective to clients that I'm trying to service and partner with.
Yeah, and let's dive deep into, for our listeners that don't know who Vine is, maybe share a little bit more about that. But yeah, 100%. And I want to dive deeper into when you left programmatic and when you came back. Like there was a little large guy called Adam Home that all of a sudden showed up, and you're like, what's that doing here? And you probably see that every day. But
Mm-hmm.
give our listeners a little bit more about Viant. And Viant is one of Lamar's largest DSP partners. And I want to talk about the educational side and how that has evolved compared to the early days of your career as well.
Yeah. So for those who aren't familiar with us, and it's my job to help change that, Viant's an independent buy side programmatic advertising platform. So we're built for CTV, but we have omni-channel activation extensions with Lamar and others across different channels. So when I say buy side, like what I'm talking about there is that our focus is exclusively on trying to help brands extract maximum value from their marketing investments, their advertising investments. We don't own inventory. We focus instead on partnering with direct inventory sources or publishers so that our brands can access them seamlessly. What we want to do is allow brands to find what's working best for them and not feel like they're fighting against us trying to service our own inventory sources. So instead of focusing on inventory, what we do is we focus on building out our intelligence layer. And these are solutions that help brands go to market in a smarter way. Like, for example, Last month, we closed on an acquisition of TVision. They're the only attention measurement provider who can see on a second by second basis, like attention on linear TV. They can see attention on CTV, and even within the walled gardens of CTV, so like an Amazon or YouTube, and we can see what's happening from an attention standpoint there. So this allows us to understand market wide what's happening from an effectiveness standpoint, and not feel like we're attributing success or challenges to our own inventory. We'll then combine those insights with our Viant Iris ID, which has CTV show and episode data, and the combination of understanding where attention is and being able to get to show and episode data with the Iris ID drives best impact for brands. And then, like anyone else, we got to have a strong foundation. Ours is indeterministic. Identity covers 95% of US households, and 96% of the CTV bid requests that we see. And then we're working in AI, and we've done so for a few years. We rolled out initially in 2024 AI solutions for planning and buying and optimization, and we'll continue to invest in those areas. So pulling the attention, the placement, the identity, the AI together to help brands find the most success as they go to market.
I just learned so much more about Viant, and I've taken the courses and have immersed myself into it. So that's fantastic. And what a way to continue to evolve, right? Because CTV obviously is the new monster. In my opinion, I think it's the most powerful medium. Where does the education side come in? Because obviously new CTV platforms are popping up every day. We're going to dive deeper into AI versus agentic and autonomous, sorry. But would love to better understand, like, how do you guys take a brand, figure out what is the best show to watch, but then also looping in the other platforms and media that you have, including out of home? How does that omni-channel approach work within Viant? And I know it varies by client, but just on an overall perspective, how does that work for you guys?
Yeah, so I mean, my focus and for the last 6 years has been on the dining category more exclusively. I think what I've found over that time is any education has to start with a grounding in measurement. How are the brands evaluating effectiveness? And then how do we start to understand different levers we can pull to get them the results that they want? So I think if we go into conversations and say, all right, well, what sort of measurement infrastructure do you have in place? Are you working with media mix modeling, which has seen a pretty big comeback the last couple of years? Are you looking at foot traffic? Are you looking at awareness or favorability when it comes to certain limited time offer initiatives? And then we'll say, all right, let's start to match up solutions kind of throughout the funnel. So, and this is, thinking about out of home as a part of this is like out of home, in my opinion, and would love your thoughts on this, is tremendously effective at driving awareness. And then I think CTV does a really nice job of supporting awareness and then driving consideration, and then moving it down the funnel to looking for a conversion, which I think out of home can also do just based on location specific messaging. So for us, when we're educating clients, it's like, well, what do you have in place? What has worked? What's not worked? And now let's start to look for opportunities to make adjustments to drive better results. I think the thing, since our acquisition of TVision, and I've had a chance to dig into more of the attention metrics throughout that platform, I think what I'm being reminded of is there's no magic bullet to fixing headwinds that brands might be facing. Like as a industry, we've kind of figured out sort of a general directional mix that works. It becomes where in the margins can we find better efficiency, better effectiveness to find new opportunities. I mean, if you watch the NFL on fall weekends or college football on fall weekends, like you're going to see every single QSR advertiser. Like they know that their audience is there. They're not afraid of it. But where within that, like if we're messaging creative specifically to SEC fans, right? Like, are we able to drive a deeper connection? Are we going to capture more attention that way? So I think working with clients to understand levers we can pull to find the opportunity in the margins of what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it goes back to what are we teaching our 14-year-old kids? How to stand out in a room. It's the same thing for brands, and that is storytelling. And the two most powerful storytelling medias, in my opinion, I'll give the third, would be obviously the influencer economy and the use of social. But mostly it's, I'll use your SEC because we're headquartered in Baton Rouge here, and this is going to be the year for LSU, thanks to Lane Kiffin and the $100 million we have in duffel bag money. But you're spot on. Like there's this different emotional feeling when you're driving around a college town, as this example, and you're representing a QSR. And it's so, and I'll use our medium out of home first, and then I'll dovetail into CTV. But in my opinion, since you asked, the culture that's woven in, and when brands weave themselves into the culture creatively from a storytelling perspective, I mean, it could be the most basic, quick service restaurant, but if they're tying in some sort of game day tailgate experience into it, which one of the largest QSR fastest emerging Raising Cane's was founded here in Baton Rouge by Todd Graves, and he does that across the entire country during college football week. So when you see digital billboards throughout the entire marketplace, that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it becomes electric, and then it's the obvious, right? Because everyone on their mind, whether you're a football fan or not. And whenever you log into, whether it's YouTube and you're streaming ESPN, or it's Disney Plus, sorry, streaming ESPN, whatever you may be and whatever you may watch, if that same QSR is woven in and tells the story that creative is showing in out of home into that CTV ad, it's that greatest storytelling reach and frequency blend ever. And then we'll throw an influencer in there and have them tell this story on why, maybe it's a NIL player in the SEC that tells that story. And again, I think we get so, going back to the original conversation around generalists or specialists, like the same thing with media. Like if you just buy one channel, we're such complex humans today. And I think that's what Viant does so brilliantly with the data that you guys are using. But you're also buying an omnichannel approach and doing it in a very more effective way, in my opinion.
Well, I appreciate that, and yeah, I think that's the thing is the proof is in the pudding. Like you do have to come back to the measurement. I think our goal, we used to say in the Yumi days, is like we want great results or great learnings, and I think we're at a time where we have to be open to both. Because if it's only just great results, then something's amiss. So it's about learning what's working, what's not working, and then applying that. Ian, I joined when I joined Viant in January. It was after standing up and helping build the dining vertical at TikTok, and the message from a creator standpoint or an influencer standpoint was always authenticity, and that was what you were talking about. Is like, if a brand just handed off like, here are your talking points, go hit it, like it just never worked.
We
And
get blasted.
anytime it was like,
Yeah.
hey, if you take your hands off the steering wheel and just kind of let them drive, like you're going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but you're going to get something that'll be more genuine for you. Like that worked like significantly better for brands.
Yeah. So go a little bit deeper on, especially in your perspective on QSR and dining.
Yeah.
The consumer behaviors is changing what expectations are, right? In the past, it used to be like see ad, react.
Hmm.
But how do you utilize your knowledge and strategy around, dining and QSR specifically in meeting those clients like wild expectations of what consumer behaviors are and how they've evolved significantly? And then you could probably just segment out certain audiences as well, and those are its own little ecosystem itself.
Well, I mean, the good news for dining is everybody eats,
Very
so
true.
so our audience pool is generally big, uh, but you do see there's a legacy consumer that brands want to reach, and it's, hey, can we drive one more occasion? Can we find them for one more opportunity, or maybe plus up, add one more item to their order, or they're trying to find new audiences and get relevant, because there's a lot of offerings out there. It's a category that has exploded. I mean, you mentioned Raising Cane's. You think about Dave's Hot Chicken. I mean, that's just the chicken category alone. Dutch Brothers has a ton of momentum behind them from a coffee standpoint. There's a lot of competition in the market, so brands, whether you're a legacy brand or you're an up and coming challenger brand, like you're looking for younger audiences who can you can provide a quality experience and service, and then take them on a journey for a good part of their life as they go through different stages. For me, to answer your question, and again, I think this comes back to this theme of generalist versus specialist, is I found the most success trying to simplify the complexity of what's going on, and looking at the market and saying like, okay, QSR brands, like your number one challenge is audience. You need to find people who like you and give them a reason to come back, or you need to find new audiences and give them a reason to try you out. Like, it's actually not more complicated than that. Where it gets
Yep.
more complicated is in how we measure it and how we do it. But like, if we're aligned on that, all right, let's go to the next step of what we want to do. There's, I talked about football earlier. Like, you're competing with a lot of brands. There's a ton of noise in the market. So from a creative standpoint, like, how do you think about breaking through? What's your value proposition that's a little more unique, that's going to bring value and benefit? Okay, like, if we've identified what that is, then how do we start to showcase that and bring it to life? So it's kind of being meticulous about going step by step in what the brand's challenges are and how we think we can solve them. And sometimes those challenges are consumer facing. Sometimes those challenges are internal. I think you look at Chili's, which has been an incredible success story over the last couple of years. That was largely driven by just getting their back of the house in order. And they said, let's make a great experience for consumers. And it's like, hey, turns out if people have a really good time going to Chili's, your content's going to be a little more viral, or it's going to resonate with audiences a little bit more. So it's having honest conversations with partners about what their pain points are and what we're trying to solve for.
Anytime they make a country music song about your brand, then you've done it, right?
You've done it. Yeah.
What one of the big things, kind of controversial topics is, hey, if you go programmatic, then creative's going to be compromised, and nothing can be further from the truth. I know that was the fear
Absolutely.
with out of home, right? But touch on that, because again, with what you guys are doing with your new attention insights, I almost feel like the creative becomes even more powerful because you have specifically ACC footballs. I'm going to get torched for this one, but ACC football is a little bit superior. Shout out to the U for finally winning after a while. But
Hmm.
the way that you talk to the SEC audience compared to the way that you talk to the ACC audience, and then if you flip to basketball, then it flips. Touch on a little bit more on how Viant, utilizing the insights that you guys have, also hone in on being more efficient with the buy, yes, but more efficient with the creative in the way that you're talking to those audiences as well.
Well, before I answer that, I have to out myself as a ACC enthusiast, because Cal and Stanford are a part of the. When you think of Atlantic Coast Conference,
I
why
keep
wouldn't you
forgetting
think
about
of,
that.
of Cal and Stanford as a part of
That
that?
makes the most sense in the world. The
Right,
Atlantic Conference, and we're over here.
right. So I think T Vision. There was a lot that excited me when I was presented with the opportunity to come over to Viant. Certainly what we were doing with Iris and the ability to get a little more granular in how we activated in CTV. The T Vision piece, it's this idea of helping brands, yeah, understand multi-level in where they can improve what they're doing. And again, I said it earlier, it's like sometimes it's not about just always seeing great results. It's understanding where the pain points are. So T Vision takes a look. It can start at like the creative level. So you can take a spot that you've made for linear TV or CTV, and you can see attention and how that tracks second by second over the course of 15, 30, 6 seconds, like how that trends. And I was looking at a brand yesterday, which I shouldn't name, and saw that attention spiked when they put the value offering up on their spot. Where I was like, okay, like that's a good indicator.
Powerful.
The other aspects of what T Vision will do is start to understand on a programming level, both for linear and CTV, are people in the room. And this has long been the challenge. Like, we know how powerful the biggest screen in our house is, outside, as opposed to the biggest screen, outside of our house that we drive by. But the biggest screen in our house, we know that's powerful. But people go to the bathroom, people get up and get drinks. Like, how do we know that someone is engaged and they're paying attention? So T Vision allows us to see that, and you can look at both channels and day parts to see where attention is strong and where it's waning, and start to make small adjustments. Like, all right, maybe you're spending an overnight, but you know what? Like, that's not like
Mhm.
that. Even if it's 5% of the budget, like you're not getting any attention there. It's like we should reallocate that to daytime. It's not everything doesn't always necessarily lead back to prime. It's finding those opportunity areas. So T Vision allows us to do that across linear and CTV. So I think from a creative standpoint, it's there's not just one solid answer to optimize performance. It's the idea of being in the right place, having the right attention, but then serving the right message and understanding, is that message resonating? And if it is, great. If it's not, why isn't it? Is it a part of the what we're offering, or is it how we've constructed the offering? So it's complex, but you take it piece by piece and say, all right, let's pull this lever and see if we can drive different results.
And it's probably early days, but my curiosity then goes to,
Mm-hmm.
well, if you see, as your example with the spike, once you list the offer, taking those insights and then via the Viant platform by other media based off of those insights as well. So, where does the audience go blank? When is the intention not there? And then what other digital media can I use? And then also lean in on the creative to say, hey, if I'm doing a social post or I'm doing online, even out of home, then maybe the offer needs to be larger because that has the highest impact. And so that'll be an interesting science experiment for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And thinking about what channels deliver what messaging better. So, like a linear or a CTV or sports, maybe that's just straight branding, where it's just like, hey, we want to be top of mind. But then you use something like mobile or out of home to say, all right, like let's have our messaging be more value oriented because we know somebody's on the move and they're further down a potential purchase funnel. That if we can send them a message that they're already aware of, they're already aware of the brand, they're already favorable on the brand, and we can say, hey, you can get two sandwiches for $10. And they're like, well, yeah, now it's time. I think the platform and programmatic in general, like that's the opportunity, is to connect these different elements to the final sales results. Dining is always going to be challenged by last mile because we're having a great conversation now, and like we're talking a lot about food, and I'm going to go get a coffee or a chicken sandwich after this, but I'm not going to order it right now because it's going to sit around for a while. So it's helping brands understand from branding and from consideration moments, tying it back to sales impact. And so that's where programmatic can really support them when you connect the pipes in a privacy safe way that allows for sales incrementality, conversion lift, measurement, even foot traffic measurement on that is like you're starting to connect the branding moments to the actual brand impact conversions.
Yeah, and that world of the online world always got to steal the like, well,
Mm-hmm.
we were the reason why. It was like there was a CTV ad that had that moment, and then the out of home had that moment. And yeah, of course you had your moment because that's where you had to purchase it, was online, as that example. I in the back of my head, I'm thinking about probably your 14-year-old as well, but Ellie, my daughter, she walks around literally, we just bought a new house and we have all these, big portrait
Congratulations.
TVs. Thank you. It's a nightmare and a blessing.
Yeah, they
But,
are.
so they walk around the house and we have these beautiful portrait TVs that kind of sit everywhere. And I will watch my daughter go from watching Disney Plus to, she's on the go, and literally go straight to her streaming account and just start like without even hesitation. So in my mind, and probably your mind as well, you're just thinking about like, oh my God, the ability for brands to have to follow that consumer jumping from screen to screen alone, even from the same platform. It's like, well, state of mind when you're sitting on the couch, to your point, as opposed to state of mind when you're on your mobile device. I think that's where, the tools that you guys have built out of Viant have really kind of shined. And it's always this dilemma in the back of our minds at Lamar, being a 125-year-old company. Like, is programmatic a positive or a negative impact? And I would argue in this situation, with our partnership that we have with Viant, it's no, it just makes the buy much more efficient. And it gives the brand that ability to say, like, I feel confident that I know where that consumer's moving throughout their journey, and I can hit them on all the different screens that I need to, as opposed to oh, next time we're going to do out of home, or next time we're going to do streaming, or next time we're going to do social. It's like, oh, how do we do this in real time? And I think that that's kind of the exciting part of the 14 years that Lamar's been engaged with programmatic, where we've seen that evolution kind of evolve, and brands that we've never seen in our lives are popping into the space for just that reason.
Yeah, you got to reduce the friction to allow brands to find what's working for them and what's not working for them. I think that's the promise of programmatic is it reduces those barriers. Um, is that the only thing you should look at? No, like interpersonal relationships, direct deals will always play a role and will always matter. But it's the promise of programmatic from a streamlining of execution. Like that's the automation that we've been waiting for, and yeah, that's what we've been focused on building. I think for us, it comes back to this idea of if brands win, if brands find success, then we'll find success as a platform. Like we need to, the buy side piece is invested in what matters for our brand partners, because as they grow, they'll find more sales, they'll find more opportunity to test different channels, spend more. They'll work with us on that.
So let's last couple of minutes of the podcast I want to touch on, because I don't want to go too deep into it because people get bored about AI now, which is wild, right? I'm headed to Cannes next week, and I feel like all I'm going to hear is like, well, AI, AI. Well, one of the biggest things that the evolution is agentic agents buying within platforms versus you know anonymous. So, love to get your take where you guys are headed in that space and thoughts on the AI world and the impact that it can have on not only ad buying, but I would say like ad emphasizing on when and where to play ads and what creative to play.
Yeah, I'm excited to work here and for Chris and Tim Vanderhook, who are the founders of Viant and long running leadership. They've really focused and set their vision on building for the future. So a number of years ago, they started to make investments in AI because it was about understanding like, hey, this isn't the be all end all, or this isn't the thing that's going to be the thing we're going to have to sell in 2026 or 2027. It was about how do we find ways to service clients and unlock value. So for us, again, it's simplifying the complexity, and it's starting with building out tools that small, mid-size advertisers can use to build campaigns more seamlessly and say, all right, I have brand X. I'm looking for this audience. This is my budget, and this is my KPI. And to go from 0 to 75 on plan build immediately. Now, there's still going to be human involvement to say, okay, well, great. I don't need streaming radio on this particular plan. I want to beef up more out of home because we've got our tie-in with Cal Berkeley, so we need more presence in the Bay Area. And start to make adjustments there. So our AI focus has been on making the go-to-market for advertisers simpler. So from a planning standpoint, then from a buying standpoint, being able to take these plans you build in AI and one click shift it over into our platform for activation. And then of course the optimization piece. I think for us on AI, it's about that 0 to 75, 0 to 90 that allows brands to find time and efficiencies and drive quicker results, and then bringing in the human layer to continue to guide that and decide what's next. I think Chris Vanderhook has said, and I've learned in my career, you have to attribute a quote 5 times before you can take it and own it for yourself. But he said
Is this the
that
fifth time right here?
yeah, I think this is like this might be number 5 here. So after this,
Let's
I'll
go.
just take it for my own. Is that performance lags with decision latency? There's so much going on the buy side for agencies, for brand marketers, that if we can find ways to quicken the pace of optimization or insights, like that's where you stop leaking performance. That's where you start gaining performance. So that's been the vision of what we're trying to build here.
Yeah, and it's the obvious, right? Especially on the programmatic side of things. Like if you're going to have systems and platforms, why not just almost super optimize every single campaign? And especially what you were talking about earlier, like you're not going to go buy a chicken sandwich right now, but you may buy it a little bit later. Okay, how do I
Hmm.
understand how that consumer behavior changes when it's raining? There's a specific pizza company that has shared with me that when it rains, online orders like skyrocket, right? Makes sense.
Hmm.
How do you then have insights that have predictable behavior that starts to better understand, okay, when we do this, this occurs. And oh, by the way, when we play this creative, and let's live in the fringe. So I love what you just said. You said 75% of the way, and then the rest of it comes in with a human. And that's gonna piece up probably to more like 80, 90. But I think the human interaction still needs to play. And I'll give you the brief 10-second story of it. But early days of programmatic and out of home is you would have some buyers that would go on and they would go after the, highest impression, lowest CPM. And then you would have an out of home specialist look at that plan and they're like, I would never in my life buy a screen over a urinal. What the hell is this doing? So obviously, like anything, that learned behavior also has that human element that kind of glazes over it. But then you're teaching it as well. And I think that that's where the true unlock for omnichannel really occurs, because otherwise we're just buying walled garden and it just seems archaic. And you're like, well, next quarter, don't worry, we got the measurement results here and we're going to move some money over to XYZ media. And it's like, why can't we do this in real time? And I think that that's the biggest benefit that AI presents, in my opinion, in the media buying world.
Yeah, I think well, I think there's a huge opportunity around performance and brands that are really anchored, whether it's D2C or they have a sense of performance. That's certainly an area we've made a bet on. Early in January of this year at CES, we rolled out an outcomes product where it's like, look, I know exactly what I need to do. Now that works for conversion based media, subscriptions, signups, certain purchases. Not so much for my focus on dining, though app downloads is a part of that. But this idea of like, hey, if you know exactly what you're trying to do, you can use AI to auto optimize. But there are other elements of let's use AI to build plans to start to activate plans. But yeah, that human element of all right, let's understand what's the creative role on that. Like AI can make creative, but can AI understand aspects of attention and shifting sentiment of content? Like we'll get to these things, but it's some of that stuff is not here now. So let's just anchor in what the reality is and what brands need to be successful.
Mhm. Yeah. And then there's obviously that educational layer that you're having to educate the brands on what tools you're using and why you're using them.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge gap as well. But yeah, I think as we kind of wrap up here, I'm excited about what the future holds. I've always had this like passion for what you guys are doing well before I met you, and I've always loved it. So I'm glad you shared that. Like Viant's always seemed to be 6 to 7 years ahead of everyone else, and they're very kind of quiet about it. And I think that that's what makes you guys so powerful and unique. And I love all the things you got to share with our listeners today about the different insights and where you guys are going in the AI space, and while still embracing human, but most importantly, like building towards the future is key.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Ian. I appreciate the nice comments, and that is like that's the mission, that's the vision, and uh, we only get there with strong partnerships, both on the brand side and on the partner side, like yourself. Like so, what we're doing in digital out of home has been really exciting and really positive, and it's looking for more opportunities to bring partnerships like that to a wider range of clients and celebrate the successes of it.
I love it. We're not gonna stop until we you and I strategically sell a digital billboard on Mars. So that's kind of the goal.
There it is.
Last most difficult question you're going to have to answer on this entire podcast as we wrap here. Are animated movies action movies? And if so, did any of them make your top 50? Does Kung,
That is a
does,
good brain breaker.
yeah. Does Kung Fu Panda like fall into action, or is that just ridiculous?
I'm gonna I'm gonna middle that answer and say, well, no, it is, but I think you have to have like some discipline in that. So I think what did I watch last year? Predator or Predators? Like Hulu had a
Wow.
Predator animated movie, which is it's a Predator movie. It just is like anime style, and so that's action oriented. I I think I think we're at a time where we want to a time in the world where we want to create a big tent and welcome in all ideas and all thoughts. There's, let's if you got an opinion on it, let's have fun, discuss it. Like that's the fun of it. I mean, it is action movies, so like I can't like how serious can I be about it? Like if you think they are, then you know what? They are.
They are.
And if I
I love
don't,
it.
that's okay. It's
It
fine
just
too.
won't make your list.
Yeah.
Sidebar, I need you to
Or
email
I'll
me
rank it
this
low.
list, or I need to subscribe to it. So let me know what the monthly cost is. You need to start a Substack immediately and start dropping these in.
It's one of those where like I love discussing it with people, and you can kind of find like the people who hear about it, like you can immediately just like they go in one of two directions. They're like, all right, tell me more, or they're just like, actually, tell me less.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
happy to send that over.
Well, we have a long summer ahead, so and I have some long travel, so I look forward to it.
I'll
Look,
set you
this has
up.
been a lot of fun for me, Todd. Getting to know you a little bit more, and obviously sharing more about Viant. But again, very grateful for the time, and looking forward to what's next with you guys and where you're headed.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ian. It's been great.
All right, take care. Thanks, my friend.
Thank you.